Hello, my name is Chuck Toombs, and I'm the founder of Dulce Energy, also doing business as Oregon Dulce. We are engaged in the farming, processing, and marketing of a specific type of domesticated seaweed called dulse. And the story began in 2015 when I had sold my last company, niche manufacturing company, and I joined the faculty at the College of Business at Oregon State University at the suggestion of a friend of mine who is the CFO of Reasor's Fine Foods, which was the largest food company in Oregon. I was a little reticent to join Oregon State University simply because I'd lived in Oregon most of my adult life, married life, and as a family, and sent all my kids to the University of Oregon, which is the competitive university. And when I got down to Oregon State University, I wasn't all that impressed with the College of Business. But what fascinated me early is the amount of research that Oregon State does. It's quite a deep research institution. In fact, next to Cornell University, Oregon State University gets more federal research earmarked money than any other college in the nation. And I thought that was kind of interesting, being a guy in sales and marketing for 30 years in Portland, that I didn't know that. And I passed that along to the president of the university when I met him. I started teaching a large marketing class called BA 390, and 400 students. And I thought, to engage the students, what I would do is go around and find a technology that existed. It's being worked on at the university, and use it as the basis of a group project that the students would compete while they're learning marketing. They would then compete at the end of the term to see who came up with the best marketing plan for this particular technology that we look at. And the first one I found this seaweed that was being grown at the Hatfield Center in Newport, and it was being the person that was growing it was a man named Chris Langdon, who's a professor of fisheries and wildlife. And he was giving me a tour of his lab, and he showed me this seaweed bubbling in its tanks. And I asked him what that was, and he said that was a patented seaweed from Oregon State University. And I thought that's interesting, so I asked him how you patent a seaweed. And he went through this, and this particular strain of dulse that they isolated 20 years ago had higher growth characteristics than normal dulse. So I said, that's kind of interesting. But back then, I wasn't a vegetarian, and you didn't know seaweed. But he did mention to me that he had seen a version of this being sold dried at Whole Foods, which is our natural grocery store chain in town. And so I went back from Newport. I went back to Portland, where I live, and I found this being sold, and I saw it, and they were being sold for $60 a pound retail. So I went, wait, stuff grows fast, $60 a pound retail. That there may be a market here. So I called him back, and I asked him, if he was right about all his research and whatever. And then I said to him, why can't this be the new kale? Because 5 years ago, in 2015, kale was kind of a trend or a fad, and my wife was feeding it to me, and I didn't even think it tasted any good. So I kind of put two to two together, and I thought, well, I'll use this as my group project, and I did. And it was really successful, and I also got me interested in and involved with the Food Innovation Center, which is a joint venture between Oregon State University and the Oregon Department of Agriculture, and they have a big office downtown, and they were interested in it. So we had went out and got a specialty grant for it and did some work on coming out with products. And we came out with a salad dressing that we marketed pretty effectively initially. But I think the biggest thing was we let the restaurants take a look at this. And I remember taking a batch of this over to a local restaurant. And the chef, Vitaly Paley, is a very famous chef. He looked at this stuff and he says, I don't know what to do with this. And I said, well, we're just fiddling around with it, seeing if the chefs and local people want to serve fresh seaweed. And that was on a Thursday. And on the Sunday, he called me back and he said, boy, I got to have more of this stuff. And I said, why? And he said, well, I found out that if you fried it, it tastes like bacon. Well, then Oregon State University had a press release about a week later that said they have a patented seaweed that tastes like bacon, and that went viral all over the world. We were on the Today Show, and we were featured. I was flown to Japan and spent a week there lecturing people on seaweed. So the amount of interest was so phenomenal that I said, I think this might be worthwhile to set up a business, and which is exactly what I did. And the team I put together is very interesting because it really is noting the newness of the industry and the beginnings of things. And I found myself starting the business alone and realizing very quickly that in things like getting permits to get water out of the ocean and dealing with port authorities and the regulation and the environment. I have a background, I'm from the University of Chicago. I have my MBA from the University of Chicago in the mid 80s, and I'm a real free market kind of guy. And I wasn't having any success with the regulators and dealing with that. So I found a fella that I didn't know at all, but recommended to me. His name is Jason Bush. And he, at the time, was the director of the Oregon Wave Energy program in Oregon, which is funded by the state and was trying to develop wave energy. And he was interested, so he joined me, and he was not only successful in talking and negotiating with these port authorities, he was also very skilled at getting grants, and we actually got a grant for our second farm in Garibaldi to build that out. So that's worked really well, and what I learned from that is that diversity at the top level, really is important. And for me to think that I knew everything, I mean, I knew nothing about seaweed. I knew nothing about growing it or how we do it. So I thought that was really important. My background is in sales and marketing, and I saw the value in this product in so many different ways that I'm good at developing relationships with channel members, and I've been pretty successful doing that in this business as well. And again, my partner, Jason, is he's involved in the operations and getting the plants up and running. And he also understands wave energy, and he understands dealing with the regulatory and that environment. And that's really made a pretty good 1-2 punch. So that's our experience as founders. The biggest hurdle, again, that we've had to overcome is scaling production and getting, because we grow this seaweed on land in reciprocating tanks using water pulled out of the ocean that's fresh. And we think there's a number of advantages to that over current production methods of seaweed. We think that obviously the continuous approach of being able to harvest daily rather than just have a setup, we think there's a dynamic usages of that, and as the seaweed grows, if we harvest, we can maximize productivity during the growing months. The product grows at about 400 grams per square meter per day, so we can consistently harvest that and create value-added products with that. And the downside is, of course, we have to spend some energy to agitate the water, but we've looked at eductors and some other things to minimize that, and we've done quite a long thing on that. My favorite cooking or food addict, again, this bacon flavored seaweed is, I've in my entire career, I've never seen anything with such huge amount of earned media when we had that press release, because I even recall the president of the university, Ed Ray, calling me, and I was brand new to the university, and he said, Chuck, we track internet traffic and for the last 5-6 years. And he said, your bacon flavored seaweed is the number two most popular searched internet traffic volume that we've had. And it was kind of funny because I asked him, well, what was the first? And he was a little embarrassed because 2 years ahead of me, there was a student that took her top off in the OSU library and put it on YouTube, and she got more hits than we got. And so I thought, well, sex and bacon, they kind of go hand in hand. So that's kind of our story in a nutshell. I hope you find it informative. Thank you.